Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are working in the shade gardens. We are putting them to rest for the winter time. That way they will be bright and shiny and ready for spring when the warm weather returns. Now, so what we're going to do is, you just saw me completely work in this shade garden right here on the side of the house at the driveway. You might notice that I'm wearing a different outfit. That's because we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I'm having to refilm the talking points of this video. That does not take away from the importance of what I have done. So here we are, of course, in this flower bed right alongside the house in the driveway. We have been here so many times. This is one of my favorite gardens. I have put a lot of love and devotion and sweat and everything into this garden. And it is a shade garden because of the house, right? And in the wintertime, it is a really shade garden. There are tons of perennials in here. And so what you just saw me do was go ahead and clean up the hostas. So I have hostas all throughout this bed. We, of course, here we are in January. We've had multiple hard freezes. Your hostas, all of that foliage is going to die back completely. If you wait long enough, like I did, then pulling that foliage out is super easy. I just used my little hand rake and just scraped it all up and just disposed of that. I also went ahead and cut back my perennial ferns. So here I have Dre's Dagger, and you can see where it is just that little bit of the stalks sticking out. You can go ahead and cut back your deciduous ferns all the way to the ground. None of that foliage is going to come back. You're going to have brand new foliage come up. I did, of course, leave my holly fern. Holly ferns are a beautiful evergreen fern that just do really well. And so you're not going to trim your holly fern until the springtime. All that foliage that you see right there is going to die back, and then we're going to have brand new fronds come up. But for the wintertime, it is a great winter interest fern to have in your shade garden. Of course, as we clean up beds, what do? We take care of the weeds, because weeds, they never go away, y'all. Even in the wintertime here in the South, sometimes I think the winter weeds are more prolific than the summer weeds. But of course, come through and clean up, get rid of all those weeds. It makes a huge difference. Your hellebores, your Lenten roses, I have several in this flower bed. This is probably my happiest one right here. You do trim hellebores, but now is not really the time to do it. You can see that we've got some old foliage right here. They are an evergreen perennial, and they're called Lenten roses because they will bloom in that season of Lent. And when I was actually in here, when I was putting the mulch down, way down in there, I don't know if I can find one, of course, to show it to you, but there we go. There's a little bud right here. So the buds are forming. They're going to come up. Just like with your holly fern and a lot of your perennials that keep that foliage, your old foliage is going to start to kind of fall down, and you're going to clean that up. So we'll come in and trim all the way around that and let the new foliage, you can see some of that beginning to emerge here. That's going to come up with your flowers. So right now, I don't need to trim this. I'm just going to let this hang out. And then, of course, y'all, look at this. The white by the gate camellia, she has done so well this year, and we have blooms on her. She's been blooming for quite a while. When we get the hard freezes, that kind of kills those flowers that are there. But the white by the gate, I am training this to go up this trellis. It's not one that, historically will go on a trellis, but of course you can do that. You can shape this and attach it to the trellis. I got this trellis from H.H. Potter. I just ordered it online. And so what I do is, a couple times throughout the year, I'll come in like this limb right here. You can come and you can pull it up and just go ahead and use some twine, some jute, and you can tie it up and then just kind of keep it pulled in, keep it more flat, and let it go up this trellis. So that is what we were doing. And then of course the big transformation. So I have a before video of what this space looked like. before I put the mulch down versus now. And really, with your gardens, when you are thinking about it, I'm trying to think how to say this the correct way. When you're using mulch, you really only need to apply it typically one time a year. And for me personally, I like applying my compost and my mulch in the fall, winter, very early spring, especially in beds like this, because all my perennials have gone dormant. So it's super easy for me to come in here and lay down the compost and or the mulch. Now, if you have really compacted red clay or a clay, really any kind of soil, even if you have sandy soil that doesn't have organic matter, then this is a great time to do that. We want to add organic matter to our soil. It is like the most best garden assistant ever. If you have happy soil, you're going to have very happy plants. I did not put compost down in this bed because the past couple of years we have been so intentional of putting tons of compost in here, and we have a really good soil system going on right now. So this year I skipped my compost, and all I did was put down the Daddy Pete, the soil conditioner. This is aged pine bark fines, right? So it is literally pine bark, the bark off of pine trees, chopped up, and it has been aged. That is the only thing that is in here. So you're gonna have nice little nuggets, and then you have some really kind of fine stuff, almost like at a compost level. But the only thing that's in that bag is the aged pine bark. And I laid it down pretty thick, a couple of inches to get really good coverage in here. So why do we want to add mulch to our beds, right? Here in the South, tons of people, you're either in the pine needle camp or you're in the mulch camp. I love the look of fresh pine needles. I mean, they're gorgeous. The problem is they don't last. You have to do them over and over again. And they, nutritionally speaking, horticulturally speaking, don't do a lot for your flower beds. So we have turned to mulch. Mulch, one, it is a great insulator for the root system of the plants. Some of these perennials over time, because we get so much rain, some of that topsoil had washed away. So adding that mulch back, it insulates the roots. So it gives a blanket, because we don't have snow. I don't have snow that blankets and insulates my plants. So my plants are susceptible to a lot of temperature changes. So this mulch really does insulate them. Two, practical. It helps reduce the weeds. There's not exposed soil. So the weed seeds, if they're blowing around, have a hard time getting down into the soil and germinating. So this is greatly going to reduce the number of weeds in my flower bed. And we're all about reducing the number of weeds in our flower beds. And then, of course, too, it looks amazing, right? It's a beautiful top dressing. It is like the lipstick or the earrings on the outfit. And it looks beautiful, it looks neat, it looks tidy, and it is all put together. As this mulch breaks down, it turns into compost. So it will add that organic matter back into the flower bed. So that is why we do what we do with the mulch, and that's particularly why I just like doing it in the fall, is because, like I said, I'm not having to worry about, moving hosta leaves or moving plant leaves and making sure they're all around, because the plants are dormant, so I can just throw it on top. It's okay that you put some mulch on top of your perennials. You're not talking about adding 2 feet worth. We're talking about like 2 inches. Trust me, it is fine. Those plants will pop up and be extremely happy. What I will do in the spring, as I see my plants begin to emerge, as my hostas begin to bud, they just pop up just a little bit, and my ferns begin to pop up, I will come through here and broadcast a slow release fertilizer. Historically, I just use plant tone. Plant tone is like the Swiss Army knife of fertilizers, and because this bed is so full of perennials, I'm not going to go to each individual one. I'm just going to get a cup and I'm just going to broadcast it. If you can do it right before rain, then that's great. It helps reduce the smell. If you don't get rain, just bring out the hose and just kind of water it in a little bit and you're good to go. I also went ahead and took out the dried hydrangea arrangement out of this wall hanging that I have. And I just went to the woods and I foraged. So we have The cryptomeria, those are those great evergreens that are on the back of our property. So I cut like 5 branches. So we got the cryptomeria out, and then this is just wild magnolia that's growing in the woods. It does not have the brown underside that we love about magnolias, but you know what? It's free foliage. Who cares if it doesn't have a brown underside? It brings a different texture to it. And I actually filmed, like we actually did the project, I think like 2 days ago. And the birds are already going in there. So the birds are already using this as a little bit of a refuge, as safety. I'm sure somebody's gonna probably build a nest in there. That's not a problem. And all it is just the potting soil. It's the potting soil that's still left over from the summer. I didn't take it out, so it's wet because we get so much rain. So I just jammed the stems in there, and then there you go. Easy as that. Now, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you what I did in the forest pansy bed, because the forest pansy bed needed some love and attention as well. Went ahead and had 3 different containers that I went ahead and added one I added some perennials to, and two were perennials and 1 was some pansies. Dress those up a little bit. Jerry came and helped me, and then we went ahead and top dressed that whole forest pansy bed with more of the Daddy Pete soil enhancer. So let me show you that, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll walk through, and I'll show you and explain what we did and why we did it. Here we are at the forest pansy bed. Now, why do I call this the forest pansy bed? It's because this tree is a forest pansy redbud, and it is an absolutely spectacular display in the early spring. It is covered in those classic traditional forest pansy little buds. It is stunning. So right now you're like, Jenny, this is not a shade garden. This is in full sun. Yes, it is in full sun because we are in January. It is winter sun, and winter sun is much more mild than your summer sun. When the forest pansy leaves out and it is covered in leaves, it is deep shade underneath here. And in fact, this late fall, Jackson and I came through and actually limbed up the forest pansy quite a bit, because I've noticed with this one, it has, the limbs will start to come down. So every year I need to come in and kind of limb it up a little bit. We did a really severe prune because I knew some of my plants were actually not getting enough sun. So just trust me, this really is a shade bed, but in the winter time, it is in full sun. So what I did first of all is because the generous gardener, I'm telling you y'all, she lives up to her name. She is a very generous rose, and we have 2 of them, right? So there's planted 1 on each side of the arbor, and clearly she got out of control with me this end of summer, early fall, did not keep her maintained as well as I should have. So what I did is I came through here and just cleaned up some of the sides so that we weren't being attacked by the rose canes. And it's only going to be, y'all, in probably about 2 weeks or less that I am going to come through and prune all my roses, because here in North Carolina, Zone 8A, January is when you prune your roses. And so you want to prune your roses before they start to pop out new growth, before you see those bud swells. So it is not going to be long at all. And I'm going to come through here and all of my roses will get a heavy pruning. Roses all need to be pruned unless you have certain old heirloom climbers. Other than that, if you have a rose, it needs to be pruned in the late winter going into spring. And not even like late winter. You can really do it, like I said, January. So that's technically what? Early winter for us. And so prune them. We'll do a whole video on it. But generous gardener, so she got pruned. Then I came through here on this rectangular hummingbird planter from Unique Stone. We already had the euchera in here. So I grabbed some of the Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia. I had some left over from after when I planted it behind the tea olives. There's 4 little quarts in here. Obviously, this is not going to stay in here for long term, meaning like a couple of years, because they will outgrow it. But for the winter time, you know what? It brings some little interest to this container, and it gets the euphorbias out of their quart-sized containers into a bigger container. I did not take out the soil. I left it in there. I did add biotone, and I added land and sea to it. So there you go. Just gives it a little bit of interest, a little bit of pop, and all is well. And then coming on around here on this side, I have another Unique Stone that is a trough, and this trough I went ahead and put some pansies in it. Now the pansies are a little rough for the wear. It is January. This is typically when pansies look their worst, because they're not super cold hardy like a viola is. I ended up putting 8 pansies in here. Again, left the soil that was in there, just added biotone, land and sea, called it a day. Keep it simple, sweetie. There's no need to go through and make things complicated. When the spring comes and it hits, then that container will absolutely explode. Those 8 pansies will completely overtake that container, and it will be full and it will be gorgeous, and I can leave them in there until I'm ready to put my summer annuals in. So that at least puts plants in there. I don't have a naked container, so yay for that. And then the last one that we did was this little urn. This is, I believe it's called the Roman urn. Again, Unique Stone. And this urn had been hanging out over here in this back corner. Brought it forward. I don't think, to the best of my recollection, that it's sitting on top of a perennial. Hopefully not. But I had this autumn fern that desperately needed to get out of its container. And so because I have autumn ferns right back here, I went ahead and put it in here. Now, you will notice that it's quite yellow. Bless its heart, it had clearly had a rough life, and there was very little roots in there. Something had happened to it. I don't know if this was left over from the flood, but there was like literally no soil in there. So it was lacking nutrition big time. By putting it in that container with the biotone and the land and sea, it is going to be extremely happy, and it is going to perk up. Now, with that fern, I can actually probably leave that one for at least a year, because that urn is big enough that the root system will be just fine and growing into that. And so if I want to leave it in there, I absolutely can do that. If I choose, okay, I want to do something else in there and I want to put an annual or something, I can just pop it out, add it to the landscape, and there you go. But again, it brings a little bit of interest to that spot that did have nothing here for the winter time. And then, of course, y'all, putting down that mulch just makes such a huge difference. Everybody's well insulated. Again, tons and tons and tons of perennials are in here. So by adding that nice layer of the mulch, we insulate those roots, we reduce those weeds. It is such a lovely thing. And doing this once a year, that's all we have to do it. So come spring, I don't have to worry about coming back in here and adding compost and or mulch. Now here we have a Lenten rose that she is already blooming, probably because she gets more sun, so she's a little bit more warm. So she's a little bit more advanced. We have another one over here. Before Christmas, we took a family vacation. And so Mimi was watching Brenna. And so one day, Mimi and Brenna were down here in the garden. And so she did a ton of work for me, cleaning some things up here in the flower bed. So I didn't have to do any of that work in here because my sweet mama had come in here and done it for me. So you can see that she went ahead and pruned that old foliage off of the Lenten roses. Totally fine, because you got all this new foliage, and then of course that beautiful deep purple, almost a near black bloom on that. So there you go, my friends. So the total project took me, I don't know, a couple of hours to do, but it feels so good to get this done. Like, just looking at this makes me very happy because it's neat, it's tidy, it's all put together, and then in my brain, I have nothing else to do in this flower bed. The only thing that I'll have to do in here is I have the button bush, the Sugar Shack button bush down here on the end in front of the Edgeworthia. So it blooms on new growth. So I don't know, in a couple of weeks, a month from now, whenever it is, I will come through here and give her a really big prune. She was a very happy plant, as is the Edgeworthia right behind it. So I will go ahead and prune it really well, bring it down some, and so that way it'll be good for the upcoming season. And then I have my yin and yang viburnums right here. So one of these is yin and one of these is yang. I don't remember which one is which. So they're right here with a little quick fire. Yes, this is a little quick fire right here behind it. And then up here at the tippy top, we have the white chiffon rose of Sharon. All of these will get pruned. So while I do love the fact that when we're on the patio, right, so imagine you're sitting here in the summertime and we're hanging out and all is flushed out between the rose of Sharon, hydrangea, yin and yang. This is a complete wall right here of beautiful foliage and flowers. However, they all bloom on new growth, and I have got to come in here and maintain them because I do not want them to get ginormous. I want my yin and yang viburnums to stay nice and compact and not to get too thin. So I will come in here and trim them down. Now, the timing is interesting because these are viburnums and you have a male and a female, and you can see that this one is already starting to put on its little buds. So if you want to have your flower buds, obviously you don't need to prune it right now, you need to wait. If you're okay with sacrificing those flowers because they're small, they're a viburnum small flower, then you can go ahead and prune it. We'll see what I do. Probably I won't be able to handle it, and I'll go ahead and trim them back. Little quick fire is a panicle, and it blooms on new growth, so we can whack it back. And your Rose of Sharon, of course, blooms on new growth as well, so we can easily prune those back. And like I said, the next couple of weeks, I will be pruning roses, and I have some big plans for roses, so just go ahead and prepare your heart. If you followed me for any length of time, you know that I said, okay, I'm done. Because David Austin roses can be highly addictive. And I'm like, I'm done. I don't have any more room. Well, you know how that went, right? So that changed. So we've got some new roses coming in, and then we're going to play musical chairs with some roses. So I'm going to be moving roses, eliminating roses. It's going to be fun. So I will begin that process once I start pruning them back. And then at that point, that's when we'll come through and do a clean sweep and lay down more of the mulch. Just give it nice, neat, and tidy through here. And then, of course, I've got to address this flower bed up here It really hasn't been, quote, put to bed for the wintertime, and it's about to get on my nerves. So we're going to come in here, clean up the lemon coral, seed them, get rid of some leaves, any kind of pruning we need to do, and then put this one to bed. Nice fresh mulch on this one as well. So it is a process, of course. Here in the South, that's why we're so blessed that we can garden year round. We take full advantage of that. Absolutely love it. It's kind of the payoff for us suffering through July and August with our heat and humidity, is that we can get out here on this beautiful January day and do some fun things. So bit by bit, the pressure is not as much for me in the fall and the winter as it is in the spring. In the spring, it's a rush to hurry up and get the plants in the ground before the heat hits. That's why I probably prefer gardening in the fall and the winter, just because it's a bit of a slower pace. So there's always work to be done. Getting things ready, gardening you're never finished with a garden. It is an ongoing task. Lots of fun. So if you can, get out there in your garden, enjoy some time, get some vitamin D therapy. Just do a little bit if you can, and enjoy the process. As always, we appreciate you. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.